Okay, you're good to go.
Okay, thank you, Lauren. So welcome everyone tonight to our Education Committee meeting on this snowy night and an official snow day at Warren County School Systems. Before we begin, I need to have a motion to approve tonight's format to be virtual by Zoom. If I could have that motion.
Moved.
Go
Robert
ahead.
Hennessy.
I second it, Philip.
Okay, so that was a motion by Robert Hennessy and a second by Philip Stout to approve that motion. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
what was the motion?
the motion was to approve tonight's format to be a virtual meeting through Zoom.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. With that motion, we'll go ahead and proceed with our meeting. Everyone is in attendance on our committee members, as well as Mr. Swallows and Lisa Hobbs with the newspaper. So the very first thing on our agenda should be to approve our minutes from our last meeting. They were sent to us by Commissioner Evans by email. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes as received and to dispense with the reading?
Mr. Stout, I make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second. Commissioner Dunlap.
Okay, that's a motion by Mr. Stout to accept for the motion and a second by Mr. Dunlap. Is there any discussion? If not, the motion passes. Thank you. So of course, our meeting tonight is going to be a lot of information to be shared by Mr. Swallows. So I will just turn that over to him. On our agenda, our first thing was to have an update on West Elementary and how close are we getting to have that project completed.
Well, I'm happy to report that we, as of Monday, Friday morning, we are much closer. The fire marshal came to West Elementary Friday morning and did his next to last walkthrough and actually provided us with a temporary certificate of occupancy for the old cafeteria part, which will be now the new library and new computer lab. And so all that means is that we can move in. That process began on Friday, and as I walked through the hall of West Elementary, the librarian said she was the happiest librarian in the nation, I believe were her words, to actually be able to move furniture in and be able to set it up. And I've actually seen some pictures. I wish I could show you some of the pictures that have come out of there with their new furniture and bookshelves, and they'll be working to set that up over the course of the next few days. Of course, it's a temporary certificate of occupancy. The elevator still needs to be approved, and once that's approved, and we had to work out a few bugs with a couple of the fire alarm systems. So once that happens, we will be granted a permanent certificate of occupancy, and we're still waiting on that as well for our cafeteria. But basically, all that means is we just have to finish the punch list items. Our contractor is working through that. They are anxious to be able to move on themselves, and so that project is rapidly hurtling toward the finish line. So we're excited about that. We've got some more work to do at West. We know that. We had to cut some projects from that, and we know in the future that West Elementary needs a few more things, as several of our buildings in the county do, and we're looking forward to wrapping this project up and looking forward to the future. But I hope you'll be pleased. I'm very pleased with the new spaces that we have for the students and faculty and staff at West.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Swallows regarding West Elementary? Okay, hearing none, we'll just move to the next subject, which is regarding the COVID restrictions and just school schedules, just everything involved. And it would like a statement from you, Mr. Swallows, about where we are, what you can predict and what you can't predict, and just address that if you could, please.
You will find no predictions from me. I have learned my lesson, and at this point, information is changing just as it has been rapidly. But as you said, Commissioner Brown, today is officially a snow day in Warren County, and even that's different. On remote learning, how do you have a snow day? It's just been a different experience. So just give you an update since the last time we spoke. We did in December have another uptick of cases in our school system. We expected that coming out of the Thanksgiving holiday. Everyone predicted that, and just true to fashion, in our county, we saw our numbers go up. And as those went up, so did our school system go up. So we did finish the semester. We were able to get through most of the semester with most of our schools, the high school, middle school, having the largest populations. We did have to take them remote the last week of the school calendar in December. And we did get through Wednesday of the last week at most of our other schools before having to go remote learning there on the last few days. Something that we've tried to avoid all the way throughout. We've talked about it from July on, that we prefer to be in person, but at the end of the day, when the community rate and the rates inside our school system were as high as they were, we have to take action. And we felt like we did. We did do that. I made the decision at that time, a tough decision, to shut down all athletics for a 2.5 week period, because simply we were looking at the community rate, the community spread. And if you looked on our Tennessee.gov, the positivity rate in our county was up over 30% at some points. A couple other websites that we refer to and to our health department, we were at certain times, at different times, we were number one for the number of cases per 100,000. Of course, again, understand that Warren County has a 42,000 person population, so you have to half that number. But at the same time, per the number of residents that we have in the community, we were number one in the state. We dropped to number 3, went back to number 1, and so we just know we experienced quite a bit of infection in our county. Saw the newspaper article last week that said, unfortunately, in our county, we went from 21 deaths to about 46, I believe, is what was reported in a 30-day span. And so, again, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but certainly concerning numbers on the rise and the spread of the virus in Warren County. So made the tough decision. Again, it was predicted that coming out of Thanksgiving that there would be a spike. That's the same thing, same prediction held true for the Christmas holiday. And so we felt like taking the first 2 weeks out in January to give us some time away from the holiday, where there were family gatherings and bigger gatherings. And also the governor did issue an executive order limiting gatherings. I'm sure everyone's aware of that. And so we felt like we were going to take the first 2 weeks in our community to give some time, hopefully, for people to stay away from each other more. And so we began remote learning to begin the second semester, which was January the 5th, and that will conclude on January the 15th, which would be Friday. Our plan currently is to come back on Tuesday the 18th, which would be, that's the 19th, which would be the day after the Martin Luther King holiday, with an in-person, back to our in-person model. Again, as I started this with, predictions are really tough to make, and so we're trying to gather all the information we can. I'll be doing that throughout this week and up until the end of this week and then making the decision to what our school status will be on Tuesday. The plan has always been to come back on that Tuesday, but once again, I caution everyone, if our community rates spike or we have issues inside the school system that we know that cases are going up, then we would have to make an alternate plan there. Our desire is to go back to in-person learning, but I will say, I want to brag on our teachers and our students. What we've been doing over the course of the last week is asking students to log on. If they're students 6th through 12th grade, we've been asking them to log on to Zoom at their class times with their teachers. And I've seen a lot of great things. Teachers are up in front of their classrooms. They are going into the buildings. They'll have their laptop in front of them, much like we have today, and they're teaching their lessons. So if you walk down the hallway, you would know that there was a whole lot of difference other than the fact that teachers are in there and students aren't in there. And so students K-5 are not necessarily logging on. They're working through paper packets that are being handed out at school, being delivered via our buses as well. And I've even seen a number of teachers hold some Zoom sessions for K-5 students as well, just so that they can check in on them and make sure that we're getting as many touches or contacts with our students as we possibly can. Did let athletics resume on January the 4th. Had a number of questions as to why I made that decision, and those are good questions. And I will say that that's a tough decision, but need to understand that those athletic teams are working against a calendar, and their season is actually about to wrap up in a few weeks. And had we extended the ban on athletics for 2 more weeks, we eventually, or theoretically, would have been saying that their season was over, and we did not want to do that. One reason that I was more comfortable with doing that is that the governor did come down with more restrictions on athletic events. He came out from his office and basically said that athletics could resume or could continue, and only household members of a student athlete could attend a basketball game. And so that's with all the restrictions that we have in place currently, wearing a mask, and only household members could enter the gym. Temperatures are being taken. And so we felt comfortable with that change going forward. We've had a couple of games since that time. Our fans are able to spread out much more. And so we, again, felt like that we had to give them that opportunity to try to complete their season because they're up against the wall. Taking 2.5 weeks off like we did in the middle of a season is very tough on teams. And so, again, we had to make that decision, and things are going pretty well there. I will just kind of wrap up this portion. I'm sorry to go on and talk so much about it, but again, it's just what we're dealing with. I'll just end this portion with we as a school system are doing some really good things, even in some very tough circumstances. I would just want to encourage all those that are watching and listening to continue, students to continue to log on. We are offering after school tutoring via our Zoom system or our teleteacher system as well, for any students and families that are struggling to get work accomplished or get work done. We are continuing to feed our students. Our buses are still running a route. Our cafeteria workers are still fixing meals. We're putting meals on those routes. We're also having meal pickup at the school. And so we're still trying to provide all the services that we can to our students in our county. It's much more difficult in this setting. That's why we prefer in person. But at the end of the day, we're still trying to serve our students and serve our community. And I want to commend our teachers and our staff and our employees and our students for continuing to do that. So I know I've said a lot. Would be happy to answer any questions that you have or any comments that you might have.
I have a question. How about the vaccinations for the teachers and the school system staff? Where are we with the percentage of who's gotten them? And if they're still available and how they're getting that project,
That was-
getting all the vaccinations out.
That was my question also.
Okay, great question. Appreciate that. Was very fortunate. Over the Christmas break, I got a phone call from our Director of Health Services, Sonia Walker, and she said the Warren County Health Department had the vaccination in stock, and they were going to start vaccinating teachers that work with the schools. I believe Lisa actually did a story on it in the newspaper. And so that phone call happened about 8:30 that night. That morning, about 7 o'clock, I sent out an email telling our staff that anybody that wanted to make an appointment that they could go and get the vaccination. By 9 or 10 o'clock, I believe there was a line of cars around to the bypass from the health department. A number of folks, and I think that speaks to the seriousness of which our teachers and our staff are taking this, and they want to get back in school. As far as a percentage goes, Carlene, we didn't. I believe we had about 245 of our employees that were vaccinated during that time period. They ran out, and so we had another day that it was offered. Some of our folks were able to make an appointment at that point, get in and make that. Once all the supply began to run out, the state began to adjust that. Schools and their employees are in 1B. Not currently, they're vaccinating 1A. Our folks are in 1B, and so I believe we kind of got a little bit ahead of ourselves. And so the state has now said, hey, listen, we need to finish out 1A before we move back to 1B. So folks like myself, I will say that I did want to wait and let our teachers and folks that are on the front line get vaccinated. We're going to have to continue to wait until our stock goes back up. But we are working with our health department very closely. There was a letter that came out on Friday that actually said that if school systems chose to do so, that we could potentially start back our health services folks under the direction of a healthcare provider could possibly start vaccinating our staff as well. So a number of things to work through. But right now, to answer your question, we are still waiting for more vaccines to come in so that we can get our staff all vaccinated.
Okay. Commissioner Evans, I saw you. Was that your question also?
Yes, I had emailed a list of questions to Andrea Fox, and I know she is very overwhelmed, and I have not received a response yet. But I did find out that teachers can call and they get on a waiting list, and when they receive vaccines again, they will contact the teachers on the waiting list. And I guess that would apply to people over 75 too. Some of my questions to Andrea Fox were related to the 1A category. And until just now, I did not know that the state has pulled back on the 1B. So I think that answers the questions I had. I've tried to keep the community on Facebook who follow me informed of what I have learned.
Yes, I did see that too. Thank you. Does anyone else have questions about COVID to Mr. Swallows? One more thing that came across my mind when you were talking about the percentages of the positivity rate in our county, and that had gotten as high as 30%. Do you have any knowledge of what today's percentage is?
We're at 25 today.
It's too high.
We're going down, but understand, so a little bit of complexity here. All right, so that's a percentage of the positive tests. Understand that over the Christmas holiday, what happened to those tests? They went down. So we were not testing near as much. So if there are fewer tests, when those positive tests come in, that makes that rate go up. And so again, we try to look at those and keep an eye on all of that. We also try to look at positive tests per our community. That has really gone down, and that's a positive thing. That's a good thing for us. And so we've gone from first in the state to, I believe last time I looked, we were 41st. That's one of the items that you don't want to be first. You want to be low. And so we are continuing to watch that. Appreciate Commissioner Evans. I know, just like she said, we've reached out to the health department. We work with Andrea Fox and try to make sure that we're on top of our community environment, as well as continuing to keep up with our students. And I would just say that our nurses are really trying to work hard, even without students in the building, to communicate with families. So I would say to families, if they would keep us updated for any student that might test positive or faculty member that might test positive, we need to know that data so that we can make informed decisions.
Okay, thank you. The next thing that we had was you were going to kind of share with us about the upcoming governor's special legislative session on education. And
yeah, so I
all
appreciate
that involves.
last time we met, we talked about the fact that we were trying to encourage our legislators to hear some of the concerns that we have as a school system. And in between that time, the governor has actually called a special session that will begin on January the 19th. That's next week. And the legislature is going to take up 5 different topics that are dealing specifically with education. That is learning loss, that's literacy, that's funding, that's accountability, and teacher pay. And so the very positive thing, we're excited about that they're going to take up those things. Of course, we've heard a lot of different things. Governor Lee has come out basically saying that he feels like accountability should be waived for teachers and students and school systems because of all the issues that we're having this year. I do believe that we will still test, but the accountability portion of that would be waived. One of the great concerns that we have are related to funding. Every school system that I'm aware of has seen a downturn in our enrollment. More families are choosing to potentially do homeschool. A number of families that have the choice of whether they start their students in kindergarten or not have potentially waited a year until we can hopefully get out of this worldwide pandemic. And so we've seen that go down. That directly affects our funding. And so we're hoping that the legislature will potentially draft a bill that would hold systems harmless and fund us at a rate that was based on normal enrollment for last year. A lot of exciting things coming down from this legislative session. We did have the opportunity to meet with Congressman Sherrill and Congressman Bricken and Senator Bowling, and really voice our concerns from a school system standpoint. We hope that those concerns will be heard and voted on in this special legislative session. Again, I think a really good thing would be for them to take up the first day the idea of accountability and waive that so that our teachers and our students can hopefully relax a little bit and focus on what needs to be focused on as we finish out this school year, and let them breathe a little bit. And we've been advocating that from very early on. And we hope to see that the Tennessee General Assembly will do that beginning next week. And it would help me breathe a little easier as well if they would talk about funding and potentially pass that hold harmless bill.
Well, thank you very much. Any particular questions specific to that by anyone?
Ms. Brown, if I may, Robert Hennessy.
Okay, go ahead, Robert.
Director Swallows, do you know if there's been a bill drafted yet in regard to the hold harmless?
Yes, sir.
PEP
There
fund?
actually has been. We are waiting. at 1 o'clock, we were on a conference call with the Commissioner of Education. I believe, and I actually thought I might have an email before this meeting started that would give us a draft of the bill. But I have not seen that yet, but I do know that it has been introduced. And I'm hopeful that it includes all the language that we've pushed for over the course of the last few months.
Do you know the name of the individual that drafted the bill?
I do not, but I would be happy once I get that information to share that with this committee.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Chairman Brown, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Evans.
Okay, for Director Swallows, did you receive any inkling or commitment from either Congressman Bricken, Cheryl, or Senator Bowling regarding which way they may vote? And if you did not, do you recommend that we start a campaign to have everyone contact them and lobby them for this?
I appreciate that. I do believe that we were well received. I don't believe anyone, until, just like Commissioner Hennessy asked, until they see the bill, I don't think they were able to commit one way or the other. So once I receive that bill, or once we are able to read that, I plan to reach out to them again, asking them to vote favorably. As I said, the governor has come out in support of both of those issues. And I do believe that our legislators would probably favor that as well. So once we see that, I do plan to reach out and hopefully get a commitment from them. And I believe I'm very, very hopeful that this was going to take place. There's some details that have to be worked out, but I do believe we're not fighting an uphill battle. I guess that's I don't know if that's the right term to use, but I do feel good about where we are.
That's good. Thank you very much.
Any other questions regarding the governor's session? Okay, next on here is the financial update. If you have anything on that you wanted to talk about.
Not necessarily in particular. We do feel really good about where we are, but I will just say that primarily a lot of that is because of our ESSER funds, which again is the stimulus package related to that. We are hearing getting some really, really good information about the second round of funds. And one of the things that I was told was that we're expecting about 4 times the amount that we got the first time, which is certainly substantial. And again, that is directly related to helping school systems overcome the hardships faced through COVID. And they're really pushing with this second round of money for us to think seriously about building projects that would help school systems get better ready or be better equipped to handle student safety, either through HVAC systems or upgrading windows or upgrading different things that would really allow our students and our faculty and our employees a better environment in which to learn. And so excited about where that's going. We're rapidly receiving information on that. It feels like, again, on an hourly basis. So our team at the district level has begun to work on that. We're going to be really pushing that through over the course of the next few weeks. And so we'll have much more information around that. But financially, again, provided that we are held harmless for our BEP going into next year. And I feel like we're okay, but I want to caution and say that we're also being proactive in understanding if our enrollment doesn't go back up after the pandemic is behind us, then we're facing a substantial loss of funds. And so we have to go ahead and plan for that in the future. Now, these stimulus funds will help us offset that. But again, these are one-time things. And so one-time fund. So we've got to be strategic and understand that we have to plan for the future. And as a district, we're doing that. Of course, in Warren County, we're beginning to look at budgets for next year already. And so we're making sure that we're being good stewards of the taxpayers' money and the county's money and the school system's money as we move forward.
Isn't this a problem that all the schools are having? I mean, very
Yes, ma'am.
same, because their numbers are down too. So it's
Yes,
across the
ma'am.
entire state, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am. If there is a school system that hasn't lost enrollment, they are very few and far between. I believe there's only one in the entire Upper Cumberland out of 14 school districts, and that's a very, very small school system to begin with. And so it's a statewide, nationwide problem.
Yes, okay. Any other questions to Mr. Swallows? Well, the last thing here is if there was any report from the school board on anything that they wanted to share with us.
I don't believe I talked to Chairman Best today, and we actually neglected to discuss this, so I apologize for that. But we did have a special called meeting last week. Of course, if you all are aware that FFCRA, which was the bill that extended paid family leave or paid sick leave to our employees, that ran out on December the 31st. And so the new bill actually gives a school system or an organization the option to extend that through March the 31st. And so we did meet for a special called meeting last week, and the Warren County School Board did choose that option to extend those provisions through a new school board policy. And so we're trying to take care of our employees, and I appreciate the school board having the foresight to do that. And we'll look at that again through March, at the end of March, kind of see where we are. Hopefully at that time, we'll have some more, a lot more employees vaccinated if they choose to do so. And we can make an informed decision at that time. There is our regularly called meeting will be at the end of January. And so that would be where we spend much more time diving into that. But I believe that would be the report that's from the Warren County School Board.
Thank you very much. As a member of the COVID task force, every Tuesday you have been giving updates to the community. Is your team planning to do that again tomorrow?
Yes, ma'am. County Executive Haley will begin. I believe he told me today that he's anticipating potentially Governor Lee being on tomorrow, and as well as Dr. Piercy with the State Health Department. So 10 o'clock tomorrow on BLTV. And I will also be giving a similar update to what I gave tonight about the school system at that time.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure we could share that, because I think a lot of people in our community do log into that or watch it on TV or on Facebook or however they choose to find it. Does anyone have any other questions or any other business you want to discuss this evening? Robert Hennessy, is that your hand?
Ms. Brown, I apologize. I hit the wrong function.
I was going to say that's new.
Yeah, it's new to me too. I apologize.
It looked like a clap. I'll take any claps I can get.
Okay.
That was a clap. Yes, sir.
Okay. The more we do this, the better we'll get. So if that's a raising of the hand, we need to be starting to do that, don't we, Ms. Sweeten? Especially during the large commission meeting. Okay, does anyone else have any comments, or if not, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion, Commissioner Dunlap.
I second that, Commissioner Stout.
Well, thank you both, and thank you, Mr. Swallows, for attending, and Ms. Hobbs and Lauren Sweeten for conducting our meeting tonight. Thank you all very much, and we will be in touch. Good night.
Stay
Thank
safe.
you all.